Al-Furqan Institute of Quranic Education, a division of Al-Furqan Foundation, delivering the message of the Quran to everyone in America.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين.
Inshallah, we're starting a translation series of the Quran, and if anyone has a Quran with Arabic or English or just an English translation, and they can follow along, and then a lot of the verses of the Quran, their meaning will be explained to a further detail. And those parts of the Quran that are mushkalatul Quran, difficult parts of the Quran, or other parts that have to do with the parables and similes and sometimes the asbab al-nuzul, the reason why a certain verse or a group of verses of the Quran were revealed at a specific occasion, these things will be explained. In addition to that, we will also be talking about the links between one surah to the next surah, because this tartib, this order that the Quran has, from Fatiha to Baqarah, from Baqarah to Al-Imran, and then so on and so forth, it's not just random. So, and then also we will be looking at the themes as each surah and each group of surahs. Each surah has a main theme, each group of surahs has a main theme, and a lot of these surahs, they have pairs, like Surah Al-Baqarah and Al-Imran, Surah Al-Falaq and Surah Al-Nas, Surah Al-Rahman and Surah Al-Waqi'ah, Surah Bani Israel, or Surah Al-Isra and Surah Al-Kahf. So like this, many of the surahs of the Quran, they're paired and they come together to complete a topic. And sometimes a topic is mentioned in one place and then is being completed in another place. So some of these things will be put in a way that will help the reader of the Quran, the student of the Quran, to see these things in a more clear way. And of course, this is not an in-depth study. This is a study to get a bird's eye view of the message of the Quran. This is the intent here. We will be spending some time more with Surah Al-Fatiha because it's the first surah and there are many issues related to that. So the introduction with Surah Al-Fatiha will be a little bit longer, but other than that, it will be every surah will start with an introduction so that the person understands, okay, what is this surah going to be going through? And then following the introduction, we go into the surah, and then verse by verse, we look at how those verses relate to the introduction that we talked, in our introduction in which we discussed the main themes. So without further delay, let us start with بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Now there are this is such an interesting part of the Quran, and that is the Quran from the offset starts off with an interesting but valid difference of opinion regarding the ayah of Basmallah, the ayah of Bismillah. So and in this there is two opinions. One is that this Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim in the beginning of Fatiha is part of the Fatiha, and the other opinion is it's not part of Fatiha. So why did the Sahaba sometimes consider, or the Mufassirin consider, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim to be part of the Quran? The reason is very simple, and that is that when they found the copy of the Quran by Uthman radiallahu anh, they saw the Sahaba writing Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, and this was a copy of the Quran, and therefore before every surah except for one you find Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, therefore this is part of the Quran. And the other reason why Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim is not part of Fatiha, I will be discussing at the end of this lecture. So Fatiha starts with this difference of opinion of whether to read Fatiha, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim or not. The opinion of the majority, which is what Abu Bakr did and Omar did, and the others have also been mentioned, that it is mustahab. It is definitely, if not part of the Quran, definitely it is highly recommended that one reads Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim before reading Fatiha. But these are both valid opinions. The other group of the companions and scholars of Islam, they felt Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim is just there to make a demarcation of separation of the surahs. It is not necessarily part of the Quran. The second difference of opinion that occurs regarding Fatiha is the recitation of Fatiha when you are behind an Imam. For this, there are basically three opinions. One opinion is of Imam Abu Hanifa, in which he says that when you are behind an Imam, you do not have to read Fatiha, because of the hadith in Sahih Muslim where the Prophet ﷺ says whatever the Imam has read, the Muqtadis have read, so therefore there's no need to read Fatiha. The other opinion is the opinion of Imam Shafi'i and also Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, but they do it differently. Imam Shafi'i says, La salata illa bi Fatiha. There's no salah without Fatiha, meaning in every rak'ah, whether the Imam is reciting out loud or whether he is reciting the Quran to himself or in a lower voice, jahr or bidun jahr, the person who is behind the Imam, La salata illa bi Fatiha, he has to read Surah Al-Fatiha. This is the second opinion. The third opinion is the opinion of Imam Malik, and that is that when the Imam is reciting Fatiha out loud, فَاسْتَمِعُوا لَهُ وَإِذَا قُرِئَ الْقُرْآنَ فَاسْتَمِعُوا لَهُ. So when the Quran is recited, the Quran says, listen to it carefully. So Imam Malik holds the opinion that one should recite Fatiha when the Imam is silent, but when the Quran is being recited, then a person should put full attention upon the ayat that are being recited. That would include the 7 often recited ayat of the Quran, which is Surah Al-Fatiha. So the Quran starts with these, you can say, 2 difference of opinions. One regarding the ayah of Bismillah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim is an ayah of the Quran. Innahu min Sulaymana, innahu Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. This is an ayah of the Quran, there's no doubt. But the question is it part of Fatiha? And then the other question is it part of every surah? So there's valid opinions that it is part of a Fatiha, and there's valid opinions that it is not. I will be mentioning a hadith al-Qudsi at the end, which shows that it is not part of Fatiha, and I've already given and demonstrated why some people have considered this to be part of Fatiha.